various public institutions are well tailored to make sure that if there's going to be an absorption of these interns, that they are going to be able to do the work that they're doing. I know that the Teacher Service Commission has an internship program of 2 years where they guarantee absorption of everyone. And I think it's important, when I heard Honorable Elachi speak, she mentioned that you're employed as an individual. I think as a country, we have two areas that really have done us good, but they're also our undoing. One of the areas is that we go and rush to court with everything. And so we actually paralyze counties and governments from performing duties. And then in the end, people ask, where are the services? It's because they've been derailed. I remember having a conversation with Governor Sakaja of Nairobi and asking, what are we going to do about the garbage collection? Somebody had gone to court and stopped the contract that they were about to enter with somebody who had won the bid to be able to help us sort out our garbage through recycling programs. So when we go to court or when we demonstrate, sometimes we demonstrate and then we injure ourselves. I look at Teacher Service Commission right now because that's the hot topic. And they had a number of interns. Normally they absorb the interns over 2 years. But I believe that they have a collective bargaining agreement to that effect. But I believe now that we're going to have the law that says the intern should not be more than 6 to 12 months, then that collective bargaining agreement will have to be renegotiated so that we are able to then absorb them in 12 months. I think to have an intern for 2 years is actually not right. Government should not allow for interns for over 2 years. We should be able to then look at if we are going to absorb all the interns that we take in the education sector, then we have to make sure we provide the necessary budgets. And how do these budgets come? It will not be 100% budget because you will have some teachers that are retiring. So we need to make sure that the money for interns is strictly used, and the monitoring and evaluation for intern budgets, which I understand this year's budget is going to be over 2 billion. We have to make sure that when we budget for interns, it is used for interns. It is not used for any other program within the public sector. I like that we will provide for sick leave, we will provide for maternity, we will provide for paternity. Because if we don't provide for that, then when an intern wants to be absorbed and she goes for the interview and she's pregnant, then you will find they will be looked at as a burden. But if it is provided for in law, then there will be no discrimination of anyone who is pregnant. And then illnesses catch us at any point. You can walk into an interview absolutely healthy, and 6 months down the line, you're diagnosed with something. So I think we have to have a humane way of dealing with our employees, whether permanent or under intern programs. Now, when it comes to the country at large, I think there is an important need to do a census of our population, because that will also inform where we allocate the most budgets from the 2 billion budget that we have for interns. When we look at our population and we realize that we have the number of unemployed teachers is way higher than the number of unemployed doctors or nurses, then we know that the absorption of interns in the education sector or in the medical sector has to be, the budgets have to be given relative to the amount of people that are unemployed. If we do not conduct a census on the number of people that we have unemployed in our country and the qualifications that they bear and the experiences that they bear, then we are not able to effectively provide the budgets to actually grow the specific industry. I believe that we need to budget based on the training of our population, and we also need to guide our population on where we have overtrained personnel and we need more people in a specific sector. I remember there was a time when Singapore was looking at a certain area of their country as they were progressing, and they realized that that particular area, not many people were buying into the development and the growth and prosperity of Singapore. And what did they realize? That particular area, the people were professionals, were either lawyers or doctors, accountants. So what they did is they made sure that they made that into a hub to provide those services. So we need to be able to think forward and think of how we place resources. We place resources based on the population. We inform the population. There's no need when you have probably 2 million teachers that are unemployed and our absorption rate is 20%, that we encourage more training of teachers. We need to then look at them and counsel them. And counseling for future career prospects is very important. And as long as a country we don't do that, then we will be taking interns that we can't absorb. Now, having said that, we also have to realize that if the government can only employ X amount, then we need to figure out how are we going to work with the private sector? How are we going to make it lucrative for the private sector to buy into the internship program that the government wants to have? What are the incentives that we're giving the private sector to absorb our interns? Because, having 10 million citizens out there unemployed, and I guess when the government is looking for bilateral contracts to try and export labor, it's also recognizing that our absorption rate of the unemployed has been actually dwindling. So we also have to make sure that as we do this budget and pass the budget and the finance bill, we need to make sure that as a country, we are going to protect the jobs that we have and the corporates that we have. Because if we don't protect the jobs that we have and the corporates that we have and the manufacturing industry and the financial industry, then we are going to have people moving into neighboring countries. And when people start moving into neighboring countries, what does that mean with the COMESA agreement? Is that we will become consumers, our people will not have jobs. So we need to find that balance. And I pray that we find that balance, because if we don't find that balance, then we're going to have an even more shrinking unemployment. We will not be able to absorb the interns, and we will not be able to basically attract corporate investors and manufacturers, and even our own Kenyan manufacturers right now are looking for where can they make the most money. So I think there is an importance for the people that economically advise the government on how we're going to go forward, to actually start taking off their blinders and thinking outside the box. Because when you think you know it all, you could be actually creating problems that will not only affect us now, but will affect us for generations to come. Because if an industry closes down or an industry moves out of this country, to bring it back will be impossible. So I think we should have a high retention rate of whatever we have that is creating employment opportunities for our people. All in all, I believe that this country can only go forward when we move together, when we're sensitized about the needs of our people, when we listen. And that's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. It's important that we listen. And I pray that we start listening now, because Kenyans out there are suffering. And right now, when we talk about 2 billion shillings in the intern budget, it's because we will need to collect that money. But then also, those interns out there, remember that when we budget, we're also trying to provide for you. All in all, the day we deal with corruption is the day the prosperity of this nation will be restored, re-engineered, and everyone will become rich. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Nairobi County. The Honorable Michael Mushira, Member for Oljoro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the Public Service Internship Bill of 2022 as sponsored by the member for Saburu West, Honorable Naisura Lesuda. And Madam Speaker, let me start by applauding the member for bringing this bill at the right time. Madam Speaker, every year we appropriate money for the internship program. And Madam Speaker, we do not have a legal framework to run this program. We do it on the basis of the goodwill for the current government. But Madam Speaker, we know that goodwill alone is not good enough. The goodwill needs to be backed up by the necessary legal framework, and this is what this bill is trying to do. Madam Speaker, we've had court's pronouncement on this internship program, especially in the JSS program, where the court nullified the internship program because there exists no legal framework for this program. Madam Speaker, this bill will try to sort out this. Madam Speaker, we also know that the basis on which the TSC engaged the interns, it was actually not internship program. It was employment, because, Madam Speaker, there's no way you can, the way my understanding on internship is that you are working under a mentor. But on this JSS program, there was nobody mentoring these interns. So, Madam Speaker, let it be clear that what the TSC did on JSS